Hello everyone, this is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1, and welcome to the Tuesday Chat, March 2nd, 2020, and today we are going to talk about decisions and other matters. Now, this recording is being made at 1 p.m. today, which means that I'm not going to have a final decision from today's court hearing with Field McConnell until after this recording is made and ready for editing. Once I learn what the decision is regarding the lowering of Mr. McConnell's bail and any other developments having to do with the case, I will interrupt at this point and give you that information. Okay, now we continue. As I said in the announcement, the hearing was supposed to have been held at 8:30 this morning to decide whether or not the bond requirement for Mr. McConnell was going to be changed in any manner. It's going to decide whether or not it was going to be lowered to $25,000 and if he was going to be able to go up to live with his son in Stuart, Florida. Now, there's been a couple of interesting developments in regards to this overnight. It seems our Canadian and American war is heated up a little bit, with Margaritaville and Timothy Homeseth taking virtual pot shots at each other. Agent Margaritaville seems determined to take Field McConnell's side on the situation regarding his case and with the circumstances surrounding how he got where he was. Agent Margaritaville, like a lot of us, are putting the blame squarely on the shoulders of Timothy Homeseth. Basically stating it was Timothy Homeseth and his annex that got Field McConnell in the situation that he's in now to begin with. Now, Tim Homeseth has made various accusations against Agent Margaritaville, and every time Agent Margaritaville puts up a video, Tim Homeseth puts up a counter video, and we have this back and forth going on between Tim Homeseth and Margaritaville, each accusing the other of different things. And Margaritaville simply wants the phone number or some kind of contact information for the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, and also an accounting of the money that was donated to the Children's Crusade, which anybody would want, since this is a charity or organizational of some kind. Sorry about the mispronunciation, but an organization of some kind that is taking in people's hard-earned money for some cause. Now, at first, Tim Homeseth completely denied being involved in the fundraising, and when proof was presented to him, he simply ignored it and, came up with some lame excuse, and not much has been mentioned about it. And so the controversy continues with Agent Margaritaville demanding information and actions on the part of Tim Homeseth, and Tim Homeseth saying, no, I'm not, and coming up with all this other stuff about Margaritaville, and strangely enough, he's drawn me into this. Now, I don't know Agent Margaritaville. I've had very minimal contact with him, and it's one way. The guy tried to call me. I told him that I'm busy. I just don't have the time on the weekends, which is Friday and Saturday, because it's the only free time I have, and it's not really free time because I'm preparing for the next week's itinerary. And I simply can't go running around making long phone calls. I field about 10 or 15 phone calls in one day on average, and I asked the guy if he would put what he had in writing, and he kind of took offense to it and didn't do it. And that's the last I heard of Agent Margaritaville. Now, my email address is very well known. If there's anything he wants to tell me by email, I'm more than happy to listen. But one of the things that came out in this dispute is that Agent Margaritaville wrote to Denise McConnell. And Agent Margaritaville encouraged Denise McConnell to contact Field McConnell and tell him he needs to work out some kind of a plea deal with the state of Florida in regards to this case. Now, I'm pretty sure that the lawyer for Field McConnell is probably considering that, and it may be an option at some point. But it's a good idea to have someone try to talk some sense into Field McConnell to get in the, to get into the train of thought of possibly trying to mitigate his circumstances with the state. If he were to try and plead to a lesser charge, say misdemeanor cyber stalking, and say that, okay, I admit that I made the statements I did, because he made the statements. I mean, you can't deny that. The question is whether or not it's a criminal act. And so, Mr. McConnell's attorney could determine whether or not the proper course of action might be to offer the state a plea deal, or if the state offers them some kind of a deal, to consider it. Now, one of the possibilities, since there are investigations involved in other matters, Field McConnell may turn state's evidence. Now, this might be why Tim Holmseth is pleading with Field McConnell to get information on Agent Margaritaville, which seems to be his mission at the moment. And Randy Erickson has weighed in, along with people on her Facebook page, to say that Field McConnell should not consider any kind of a plea bargain, that he hadn't done anything wrong. Now, this is where we get into an area where I consider people hypocrites. Now, Randy Erickson keeps broadcasting this fiction that Kim Picasio wants to kill or threaten to kill Tim Holmseth, which is false. And the so-called evidence they used was the confrontation that Kim Picasio made with Kirk Pendergrass when Tim Holmseth decided to run away from his day in court. And, if people would listen to that recording objectively, they would understand that there was no threat. It was a question. People should be able to ask a question without it being taken as a threat. But, lo and behold, a letter allegedly gets written to Kathy Michael, or however the hell you pronounce her last name, where it is alleged that Agent Margaritaville made a death threat. And all of a sudden, that's a death threat. And everybody's all over Agent Margaritaville for making a death threat, yet they use every excuse in the book to excuse Tim Holmseth and Field McConnell for the explicit threats and demonstration of violent actions towards Kim Picasio that was made, including a picture of a decapitated Kim Picasio, which is abhorrent in its own right in the things that were said and done on Field's show time and time again. Randy Erickson apparently condones this behavior, yet when one letter, which I agree is wrong to have been sent, even if it was not intended to be a threat, he could have worded it a little bit different. But Randy Erickson all of a sudden, oh, that's a death threat. That's a death threat. We can't have that. Call the FBI. Call this. Call that. Yeah, you can't have it both ways. Either Field McConnell made a death threat or he didn't. And it's the same with Kathy Michael. Either Agent Margaritaville made a death threat or not. But if you apply the same standard to one, you have to apply it to the other. So if Agent Margaritaville made a death threat, then so did Field McConnell. And thus the state of Florida is justified to charge Field McConnell with that violation. And this is what trials are about, is to determine the guilt or innocence of a defendant. Now, Field McConnell is innocent until proven guilty. That's the way our system works. This is a system, by the way, that Kirk Pendergrass apparently wants to get rid of. He doesn't like it for some reason. And he wants to get rid of all the lawyers. Which, if he had done that, Field McConnell would have a bit of a problem, because Field McConnell wouldn't be able to get a lawyer. They'd be gone. And Kirk Pendergrass is yet to tell anybody how in hell they're going to put a system in place where the presumption of innocence remains and people are able to get a lawyer or something equivalent to it, whatever they come up with under this new legal system that they're promoting. But all Kirk Pendergrass does is talk terminology and theory and why Field McConnell shouldn't be in jail and why this shouldn't be done, why that shouldn't be done, and offers absolutely no concrete, detailed solution. Just a bunch of gibberish. And people soak it up. And, Tim Holmseth, who is the cause of Field McConnell's problems, complains about the medical letter. He says, oh, this is a death threat, so on and so forth. Yet what Field McConnell does on his show is entertainment. And he can go around chopping people's heads off virtually and say, oh, that's just entertainment. Well, as I demonstrated in the previous video, Agent Margaritaville categorizes his show as entertainment. So there we are. Everybody is entertaining everybody. There's no death threats, so, under the logical conclusion of everything, it'd have to be a draw. Bill McConnell didn't make any death threats, and neither did Agent Margaritaville, and everybody's free to go around saying people should be executed, shot, sent to Gitmo, whether it be Tim Holmseth, Kathy, Randy, all these people. If what Field McConnell says is acceptable, then everybody should be a target. And that just may happen if Field McConnell is acquitted of these charges, and these people aren't taking that into consideration. There is an old saying that you should be careful what you wish for, and this is the same thing here. If Phil McConnell is allowed to get out of this situation with absolutely no punishment, the floodgates towards death threats and threats of violence and false accusations and so on and so forth will have been open. Because you will now have a legal president in the United States courts. And that precedent will be that someone on YouTube can go around saying that someone should have their head chopped off, shot, other violent acts happen, and be sent to Gitmo and incite those that follow his show to follow through on these suggestions. That it's perfectly okay to do that you can't be punished for it because it's on YouTube and it's entertainment. You know, if that's what you people want, and Bill McConnell gets acquitted, that's what you're going to get, because you're going to get every nutcase that comes out of the woodwork, even those that may not like Tim Holmseth, and you're going to have all kinds of threats flying around like birds in the summer. There's going to be all kinds of crap going on because it's going to be legal to do so because it's entertainment, as Kirk Pendergrass would say. Now, I'm going to interject here something that Mr. Pendergrass may want to do his homework. Now, Mr. Pendergrass came out and said the whole purpose of creating the internet, its main goal, is entertainment. Now, I would like to see an exhibit or fact to back up that idiotic claim. Well, I'm going to tell Mr. Pendergrass something. I am deeply involved with the internet. I've been involved with the internet since the day it was created. The internet was created originally by the United States government, and it was basically created as a communication system between government agencies and eventually universities. So it was basically a government operation from the beginning. It was set up as a means to communicate quickly for military purposes mostly. And it evolved into civilian uses. It's used by business. It's used by educators. Everybody uses it. It's not just for entertainment. It's used for everything you can possibly think of. You know, from Kirk Pendergrass to say that the internet was created for entertainment is an ignorant statement. It shows what an idiot Mr. Pendergrass is. He does not understand the internet. He doesn't understand what it is. The internet, at its core, is nothing more than a means to transmit information. It's like a telephone line. So all the internet is a routing system. You have a computer at point A that transcedes information. That means send information back and forth. And you have a computer at point B that transcedes information. And that's all it is. It's not there for any singular purpose. It's there for one purpose: communication. Mr. Kirk Pendergrass needs to look up the word and what it means. Communication, to communicate. That's all the internet is for. It's not to entertain. It's not to educate as a singular purpose. It's everything put together. Now, if Mr. Pendergrass wants to differentiate between what is entertainment, what is education, what is fact, and what is fiction, then yes, his show could be categorized as entertainment, since that's about all it's worth is to entertain, because it's a load of crap. There's nothing there worth watching to get any information from, so it might as well be entertainment, and poor quality entertainment at that. You know, Mr. Pendergrass does not know anything about anything, and neither does Clint Hallett. And you certainly don't go around using a real estate license to practice law. Now, these two clowns may find out down the road that E-Claus made a huge mistake getting involved with Cynthia Abzug. You know, this business of helping people evade the law and be running around paying for people to be in hotels, telling people that they need to avoid CPS, take their children and run, get diplomatic passports and leave the country and all that, is simply wrong. You don't do that. It's against the law. If you don't like what CPS is doing, you elect people to Congress and lobby to get things changed. But you do not break the current law. But Kirk Pendergrass, being a wannabe lawyer with a mugshot, doesn't seem to understand that concept. And neither does anybody else that got involved in this mess. And as I have stated before, there are investigations going on right now that have to do with the Abzug case, have to do with other cases. It also has to do with the fact that people insist that this Pentagon Pedophile Task Force is real. And these people may, at some point in the weeks and months ahead, have to go into court and prove what they're saying on the internet. They're going to have to prove that there is such a thing as the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, and that they're going to have to prove, without a doubt, where all this money went and why they were justified in doing the things they did with Cynthia Abzug and these other people. Because at some point, today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, they are going to have to account for all this stuff. Now, the United States government is not on any time clock, and neither is any state agency involved in these investigations. And they certainly don't have to advertise who they're investigating, what they're investigating them for, and why they're investigating. And if they've gone and gotten wiretap authorization from a judge to monitor internet communications and telephone communications and so on and so forth, they don't have to advertise that either, and they certainly don't have to make it public. Now, you see people like Randy and Timmy running around bragging about all these sealed indictments that there's no names on and everything. Well, I got news for them. It's likely that their names are among those sealed indictments. Because when an indictment is sealed, you don't know who's being indicted and why. It's just that there's sealed indictments out there. It's done a lot. And it's almost a guarantee that people like Tim Holmseth and Phil McConnell are on these sealed indictments because they are breaking the law. You know, they're running around saying that they're part of the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, and even Phil McConnell, of all people, has admitted that it doesn't exist. Now, these morons on Facebook came up with the excuse that the task force that Donald Trump talks about in his speeches is the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, and this is what everybody's a member of, and that is not correct. The joint task force that Donald Trump is talking about has to do with a joint task force through the Justice Department, not the Pentagon. The Pentagon has nothing to do with any of this. The military doesn't have anything to do with it. It's being run out of the Justice Department. Variations of this particular task force have been around for before President Trump was elected into office. Tim Holmseth is nowhere near President Trump. He's not the official spokesman for the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force because the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force does not exist. And the people that believe that it does have no idea how government agencies work, how the military works, and how the Pentagon works. They have absolutely positively no idea because they're getting it all wrong. They don't take the time to educate themselves on how things work. And thus they are spreading damaging misinformation. They are getting people's safety and security put at risk because of the misinformation that they're spreading. And it's more than misinformation, it's outright lies. And they don't have any concern about the safety and welfare of anybody they target. They figure, we're right, you're wrong, you suffer the consequences. So what Phil McConnell, Kirk Pendergrass, Randy Erickson, and the others are doing is they are finding people guilty even if they're innocent. There's no due process, no trial, no nothing. They've determined these people are guilty simply because they believe they're guilty, with no due process, no concrete evidence, and they're prosecuting them on the internet, on social media. That internet that Kirk Pendergrass calls entertainment. You know, Kirk Pendergrass seems to think it's entertaining to go around saying somebody should have their head chopped off, shot, sent to Gitmo, locked up, tortured, whatever, because they've deemed them guilty of all these crimes with no due process. Tim Holmseth doesn't believe in due process. He's determined that Kim, me, and all these other people are guilty with no hearing, no court, no nothing. It's just you guys are guilty because I said so. That's what Tim Holmseth basically says. He believes he's got the answer to everything that's happened in the world since the beginning of time. That he's been ordained by God to come down here and straighten this mess out. I half expect Tim Holmseth to come out someday and say he's the twin brother of Jesus. That he was sent by God to straighten everything out. You know, these people wrap themselves around the Bible and say we're ordained by God to do this, that, and the other thing. And it's a stepping stone they use to try and convince those that follow them that God has their back. And since every one of these people believe in God, it's an easy thing to do. Because people that worship generally don't take the time to garner the facts. They act on faith. They act on what they feel in their heart. And more harm has been done to the world in the name of God than any other reason. And so on. That's where we're at today. This day of decision. Because the decision will have been made when it comes to Phil McConnell on the bond reduction. The decision will have been made possibly by Denise McConnell when it comes to taking the suggestion of Agent Margaritaville. Decisions will be made by a lot of people today. It's going to affect their lives and the lives of others from here on out. People are going to decide on a daily basis what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. Now, if Phil McConnell gets out of this little jam one way or another, what is his decision going to be? Is he going to abide by the decision of the court? Is Phil McConnell's son going to give him some sensible advice and drive home the fact that he has to change his ways? Is the war between Tim Holmseth and Agent Margaritaville going to bear any kind of fruit? Is it now time for there to be a change? Has Timothy Charles Holmseth finally met his match? I guess we're going to find that out, because I'm closing here with the battle between these two. Now, if Agent Margaritaville is going to make any progress with Tim Holmseth, he's going to have to be in this for the long haul. You're not going to be able to get through to Tim Holmseth or any of these other people simply by making a couple tweets or a couple YouTube posts and then moving on to other stuff. You basically have to concentrate on Holmseth almost on a daily basis to hold him accountable for everything he says and does. Because otherwise, Tim Holmseth is going to say, well, I bit the bullet on that one, and he's going to just keep going on. You can't let him get away with it. If Tim Holmseth says or claims something, you have to point it out and say, this is what Tim Holmseth says, and this is why he's wrong. And you got to make him prove what he says. You got to hold him accountable. You got to keep after him to prove that this Pentagon pedophile task force exists. The same holds true of the Children's Crusade. And basically, everything has to go down the path of accountability. Now, I would hope that somehow, some way, Phil McConnell's son is able to get through to him and say to Phil McConnell, Dad, you have got to get away from this Holmseth character. He has ruined you. He's the reason you're down here. You listen to people like Tim Holmseth, and look where you are. You listen to people like Kirk Pendergrass, and look where you are. You're going on trial for making death threats against a stranger because he told you that the woman was guilty. He only has his word and hearsay. There's no foundational proof. There's no video of transactions being made, of interviews with suspected sellers or suspected buyers. There's none of that. And, it's just some guy who was unemployed at the time that decided to barge in on a missing child case. 1,700 miles away from the state of Florida, this guy decided he had all the answers to everything. The same guy that said that, all these different suspects were out there in the JonBenét Ramsey case and the Weatherling case and so on and so forth. Tim Holmseth barges in on these cases, makes all these wild accusations, completely ruins people's lives, and then just won't back off. He's a destroyer. And he's destroyed Phil McConnell, but he won't take responsibility for it. Instead, he drones on about this conspiracy theory, that conspiracy theory, looking for the next headline to where he can say, oh, I've been working on this for 10 years, and this person was involved in this. The Ukraine's his big story right now. Everybody's getting into this conspiracy theory business with Epstein, with Ukraine, and bringing people into these incidents that don't belong there. They're misrepresenting what's going on. You know, everybody seems to think that Epstein and the Democrats and the deep states are all in it together. And you don't know, but there's all kinds of investigations going on that people don't know about in regards to Epstein. And it is said that there are over 2,000 people involved in various criminal acts involving Mr. Epstein. And since Mr. Epstein's dead, they have to go and do this a different way. But eventually, this stuff's going to get found out, and it's not going to be the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force that does it. It's not going to be the Children's Crusade that does it. It's not going to be Tim Homseth or any of these other people. It's going to be members of law enforcement who are trained to do these things. And these conspiracy theorists are going to keep on with these wild-ass stupid theories because that's all they know how to do. They can't sit back and observe and properly discuss matters. They have to come up with all these theories and say that they're directly involved in it, when they have nothing to do with it. That nobody knows who the hell these people are except a bunch of nuts on the internet providing entertainment for those who want to get wrapped up in this stuff. You know, it's one thing to be entertained, it's another to be harmed and cause harm to innocent victims that probably don't know you're out there accusing them of these things. And eventually this stuff's going to catch up with these people. Because they're going to do something wrong that's going to get the attention finally of somebody that can do something about it. Now, what happened with Kim? Tim Homseth made the stupid mistake of screwing around with an officer of the court, and one of the top ones at that. And he got his ass handed to him. Phil McConnell made the same mistake. He messed around with an officer of the court, and now he's having his ass handed to him. And no matter what happened to Phil McConnell today, as far as getting his bond reduced, you know, getting any of his conditions for being released on bond granted, he will have been in jail for 120 days. And he's still under the control of the state. He's technically, when you're out on bond, you are still under the custody of the state or law enforcement agency that arrested you. You know, you're not free to do what you please. You have to meet very strict conditions in order to remain free. And if you violate, your ass is going back to jail. It happened to a person by the name of Derek Lawsoner in the United States v. Lassiter. It happened to Tim Homseth. He violated and he got his ass thrown back in jail. So you're not instantly innocent of anything. It's just that you have promised the court that you're going to abide by the rules they set down for your release. Temporary release. And that you will have to report back and you will go to jail if you're adjudicated guilty. So, I will adjust my labeling according to whatever changes happen on the days ahead. But, again, Phil McConnell has been in jail longer than the total number of days that Timothy Charles Homseth was in jail. Phil McConnell has probably been in jail longer than anyone who supports him. Virtually anyone. Kirk Pendergrass, Chris Hallett, even our friend in Canada, Agent Margaritaville. Bill McConnell has probably beaten their stints hand down. And all these people out there that support Field, wish him well, and everything, they haven't served a day in jail. Most of them are housewives. One in particular is a wealthy housewife. Kind of, sort of real estate broker, some kind of a weird-ass pretend judge. None of these people are suffering. And even Tim Homseth isn't suffering. Tim Homseth is the one that started all this crap. He's the one that went after Kim Picazio, filled Phil McConnell's head with all this crap. And look at him. You know, he's having the time of his life. He's running around, you know, and stopping in McDonald's parking lots every once in a while and making these stupid videos and continuing to be an ass. And nothing is happening to him. He's getting away with it all. You know, deep down, he's laughing at everybody. He's saying, look at these stupid people. You know, they're allowing me to get away with all of this. So, you know, there we are, folks. You know, just remember that while Field McConnell rots in jail on a daily basis and has to worry about his future, whether or not he's going to go to jail for 5 years, whether or not he's going to have a roof over his head when he gets out of jail, whether or not he's going to have all his cars and his house and everything else, and whether or not he's going to have to pay his son back if his son is financing all this. So Phil McConnell's got an uncertain future ahead. And it's an uncertain future that we're going to follow in the days and weeks to come. So until later, this is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1. You all have a good day. You all have a good one.